Hey, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on? All right, so we'll have a few people to be joining this time. For some reason, I don't know if you've had a situation where the emails kind of don't go through, but I have school community, the school system like sending emails as well. I think I think I gotta double check on that. But anyways, now that we have, a few people coming in, because I'm doing the pushes, the last pushes. Last time we had about 25 people, 30 people join and so on. And that was pretty fun. And I want to remind everyone, anyone that is here, that we do this every 2 weeks. So it's not too many times a month that we actually do this, and it's in the calendar, right? So just quick reminder. This time, like we did last maybe 3 weeks ago, because we were busy. Um, we did a special masterclass on how to eliminate objections forever. That's how we called it. And that is special masterclass. Ian covered a few things. So eliminate seller objections forever. Ian covered a few things that if you have earned the points, then you could go to the sales process right in here. And then there's a few things that are in here. Like for example, there's a few podcasts and also master classes that we've done, but you can also go to either premium master classes that we will, put it in there, or the objection handling challenge recordings. For example, the last one, June 20th, we have a recording there, but you can only get access to this if you actually have engaged in the community and you actually have gotten to be part of the community by earning points essentially. So here's the entire video of it, and so on. So today, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have again, um, then we're gonna be completing the second part of this, and the second part of would be serving all of you to learn how to properly ask questions. I think last time we did we had a link, right? I forgot what the name of it was. Do you have it handy there? We
The
had a link.
training I did?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was how to ask amazing questions.
how to ask amazing questions. I'm not sure if I have the Google Doc
Here,
handy.
here, I've got it. I've got it handy. I can share my screen if that would help, or I could just send it to you. I guess. Here, let me post it here. Anyone, the link can view this. So let me put this in the chat.
There you go. All right. Okay, got it in here. All right. So this is the one that we created that time. Ian created for this for you guys. He was very, very precise on what he was doing, and he created a document. And so what we do is like at the end of this masterclass series, we will put this together on a package for you guys, for those that stay into this masterclass series. And also we will tell you exactly what else we will give you guys um, for free. And a good deal that right now Sales Disruptors and CloseMoreSales.com are actually running. But for now, we will continue working on this document, right, Ian? Is that correct?
No, we're gonna open a new one.
All right, let's do a new one. Let me just
Okay.
make sure that I click on it, that I save this one. All right, cool. All right.
Cool. Well, while we wait for folks to join, what I'll talk about is what we covered last time on how to ask amazing questions. I view that as the first half of the yin and yang approach to eliminate objections forever. And what I mean by that is that if you are effective at asking like the most incredible sales questions, and then the other thing we're going to cover today, how to recap back what you had heard in a back and forth based on the questions you asked and what your prospect, the homeowner, the investor, whoever you're speaking to, whatever they say. The back and forth, as you go through that process consistently, whether it takes 15 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever it takes in terms of your sales conversation, you should not get objections at the end. That's the principle here. So the focus on that first call, and you can see the doc here, was how to ask amazing questions, really tactical. We talked about what is sales resistance. So sales resistance, I believe, comes from feeling pushed, ignored, or misunderstood. Those are the three places sales resistance comes from. Now, this is, of course, assuming a pretty key concept if you are investing in properties, which is that the person you are speaking with is actually worthy of your time to begin with. That's a whole other thing that other people that are entrepreneurs or Esteban or other people can talk you through, is to make sure that you're actually talking to someone who's worthy of engaging with, who's a fundamental real lead. This is the assumption that they are a lead, that they are motivated, that the timeline makes sense, the price makes sense. There's a reason to have that conversation. However, even though they are motivated, that does not mean they are eager to tell you all the reasons they're motivated. It does not mean they are eager to actually tell you what they're willing to accept in terms of price, right? So they are intrinsically motivated. They are intrinsically worthy of your time as an REIpreneur to have that conversation, to see if you can overcome whatever objections you would ever get from them to potentially buy their property at a price that makes sense for you as a business decision. If that is the case, the only thing standing in the way of you buying their property at that price is their sales resistance. Their sales resistance will arise if they feel pushed, ignored, or misunderstood. So we focus on questions, because if we ask the right question, we can control what the prospect says. And if we control what the prospect, or homeowner in this case, what they say, we can control their reality. And I'll come back to that point in a second. And if you can control their reality, you can make them feel like it was their idea to solve their problem.
You give us a quick, like maybe a few different things that would raise sales resistance from the very beginning?
Yes. So for instance, what do I mean by ignore? This is one of the most common things. If someone says something, if I say, so tell me about your property, and they go, yeah, I mean, I'm not really even interested in selling this one right now. That's my best rental. And then you go, okay, well, how old is the roof? They will feel ignored because they made a statement regarding, I don't want to talk about this thing. And that's a more extreme example. It could simply be, yeah, I don't know about that. And I don't say anything or give them any acknowledgement of something they had said. Did I lose internet for a second? Oh no, sorry, my internet cut out for a second there. All right, so my screen went blank. So that would be an aspect of feeling ignored. Feeling pushed comes from forcing people with outdated sales tactics to say yes 7 times, right? To make people feel the sensation of being manipulated, because you're like, yeah, you want to sell your home, correct? It's like, yeah, okay. And if I can give you something that you like and you want to move forward, you would want to move forward, correct? It's like, yep. That sensation is feeling pushy. And it doesn't even matter if what you have to offer is genuinely a huge benefit to them because of their other experiences with other salespeople, buying a car or whatever. If you give someone the sensation that they are being pushed, they will clamp up and not be willing to engage with you in a way where they want you to go forward. And the misunderstood comes up a lot in real estate investing, which is someone tells you that money is a bigger concern than speed, or vice versa. Speed is a bigger concern than price. Whatever they tell you. Now, they're not usually like speed is a bigger concern than price, but they might be revealing information that makes that clear. Like, I really need to get this done right away. They're not going to tell you speed is more important to me than price. But using active listening skills, we can notice they're starting to put more weight on the convenience factor of an investing solution rather than the traditional real estate route. And so the misunderstood part could come from someone revealing to you through more subtle things, such as, talking in a way where clearly speed should be a factor, but I'm not addressing it, or some other instance of where I'm not directly dealing with what they tell me is a priority. And then I present the wrong solution. I present a cash offer when I know that number would have never worked. I present a creative solution instead of going into cash when they clearly made it clear that they weren't interested in a creative solution. So the most obvious things that raise that resistance are you're pushing them, giving them that sensation anyway, by forcing them into yes, no answers. If you are not acknowledging what they're saying, not letting their statements be reflected back in the things you say, or if you're not engaging active listening skills to really listen for the details, to listen for the pain points, to listen for the motivation as to why they should want to work with you in the first place.
Yeah. Do you feel like most people self-sabotage themselves the first few seconds or minutes having a conversation with the sellers that make them believe, well, this seller's not worth my time, it's not motivated, I'm just gonna move on and not continue this? Or like, what's that? How's that happen?
I would say yes, but I would say most people sabotage themselves the entire way because you'll see, like, if you're in this industry long enough, you'll see there'll be a time you talk to someone and you couldn't get them to move forward with you, and then that property goes up from some other wholesaler in like 2 weeks, right? And you're like, what the hell happened? I thought that price, and it could be a number that worked for you. The problem is you. It's not them. Chances are you self-sabotaged. And the most frequent place for it to happen is exactly what you said. That's fine. Is at the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
So that's the overarching view. So let me share my screen and we'll make a new document, which is the other half of the yin and yang regarding how to recap effectively. This is the thing I have not seen talked about anywhere else. Okay, you won't find this broken down this exact same way in any sales books. You won't see this on the only thing you'll see this on is the Close More Sales podcast. You won't see this anywhere else. So let me share my screen here. All right. So the most important thing here, make sure you guys, can you see this? Is that good enough size for you guys?
Yes.
Cool. So what is recapping? Someone besides Esteban. So Charles Maver, you're on this call. I'm going to call on you. What would you think? What, in your own words? What was that?
I'm sorry. Was that Charles?
Someone else.
No, someone just came in.
Oh, okay, Charles, you're on mute.
He's trying to unmute himself.
Mm-hmm. The struggle. All right. Well, while Charles tries to find that, does anyone else want to take a shot on what is recapping?
Maybe Isaac that just came in.
Isaac, go ahead.
Not familiar with that term. Sorry.
No problem. So that's fair enough, right? So I'll break it down here in terms of like what exactly recapping is. Recapping, it's repeating back what your prospect said to you. That's the most basic way to think about it.
Oh, that's simple. I actually thought about it after you said it.
Charles, you're able to find the unmute button.
Yeah, I was able to find it now.
Awesome. Is that something you would, if I were to ask you that, like, what is recapping? Is that something you would have said as well?
Going back over the conversation you had with the seller?
Going over what?
Going back over the conversation you had with the seller?
Yeah, so you're touching on a really key point, which is how most people, I think, tend to engage with recapping, which is going back over at the end. How I actually want to talk about it is even more simple, which is simply repeating back what they said to you. So I'll bring this up here in terms of, okay, well, repeating back what they said, what do you mean by that? Or more importantly, rather than what I mean by that, is what are we looking for when we repeat back what was said to us? Right? If I hear something, what am I listening for so that I can hear it and then I want to repeat back? Meaning, what points do we want to hit and what are we trying to say? Right?
Okay.
If I'm recapping back. So when we recap, we are looking to cover 3 different elements. I'm going to break this down in a simple way that I promise you haven't seen anywhere else. And this is so powerful once you actually utilize this. And we'll break that. We'll break in the middle of this, do a little role playing so you can see what I mean. We're looking for, this is the most basic one, what they said / summarize, right? It's basic level of just repeating back almost verbatim a summary of what you just heard. The next level is how they feel / felt, how they feel or felt, something regarding the emotion of what they had just said. And the third, and this is huge, some aspect of their identity. That's all we're looking for when we're repeating things back. And it doesn't have to be all three. Oftentimes it can combine multiple, and I'll give examples of that in a moment. So when we recap, we don't, I'll put this in italics, necessarily use a labeling statement, but it often materializes the stuff as such, I would say, or as one. Does anyone remember what a labeling statement is, or familiar with that term?
No, what's a labeling statement?
Lead me right along, Charles. A labeling statement is, it feels like, it sounds like, it seems like. So it sounds like you're a really inquisitive person, Charles. It feels like you've been like really putting a lot of energy into REIpreneurs, Esteban. Right? Like that's the labeling statement.
Okay.
What is not a labeling statement? This is really key here. What I'm hearing is. It's not, what I'm hearing is you've got a really inquisitive point of view. Oh, you're really engaging. But what I'm hearing is you're engaging. We're not doing that, because the goal of a labeling statement, and in recapping, is to get them to say, that's right. Because that's right is more powerful than yes. If we get them to feel that way, that we are right, will they feel like they can trust us? If they trust us, the yes, in quotations, to take action, aka sell us their home, is much, much easier. The right type of rapport is trust. That's what I'm trying to build. And the best way to get trust is not to show that I'm from the same hometown, or I like the same sports team, or that we have the same hobbies. It's to have you feel like you can trust me. That's the real type of rapport. I don't need you to like me, but I need you to trust me. So then, if we're trying to get at the end of the conversation, more or less, is a yes to sell me your home, is the yes to take action. So then, why aren't we trying to get the yes stack that so many sales trainers talk about? Anyone familiar with this idea of the yes stack? You're supposed to get 7 yeses. And then once they've said yes to you 7 times, then you can go for the final yes. I'm sure Esteban has heard that, because I know he's been through sales training. I'm just hearing people say stuff like that. Have you heard that idea before, of getting people to say yes a bunch of times first? You're muted.
That was an older way of
Yeah.
of actually going about it.
Yeah, it's when you say older, the most important emphasis is outdated. Right? That's the most important thing. You're right. You're trying to get the yes stack. So some people say you want to get 7 yeses before asking for the sale. But what's lacking from yes? What's lacking from yes? Context, identity, and most importantly, this is really key. And so many of you, if you've been making calls, will have encountered this over and over and over again. It's one of the easiest words for people to say out loud as a lie. That's a problem with yes. And we know this inherently. right? Like it's if you think about all the kinds of your life, like Esteban, do I look good in this dress? Yes, honey. Do I look fat in this dress? No, honey. Right? We all know this idea. Are you ready to start today? Yes, absolutely. Are you feeling like there's urgency? Yes, definitely. People say yes is a lie, but that's right. That's right. Which is the goal of recapping and or labeling statements. It eliminates counterfeit yeses. It eliminates them. I don't know how the psychology works, but simply people acknowledging that you are correct, that makes sense. Yes, definitely. Loses the ease of which people will say yes or no to have you continue on through your conversation. Right? So I describe yes or no questions as closed off questions, and questions that are open-ended as open-ended questions. So when you're asking closed off questions, aka yes no questions, we are giving the prospect permission to easily lie. This is a key principle. If you are doing that, you're giving people permission to easily lie. So we want to avoid that entirely. And instead of being in pursuit of yes, we're in pursuit of that's right. This is a Chris Voss never split the difference idea, right? If they say that's right, now we're getting somewhere. But if they say yes, what's lacking from yes, besides context and identity, is the principle that if they say yes and they lie to me, it does me no good. Like now I actually might think they're serious when they just wanted me to move on to the next stage. And if they say no, it slows me down in my process. But if I'm making a labeling statement, one of two things happen. Either that's right. And again, it doesn't have to be those exact words. It's the principle of that's right. Let's just make sure that's clear. It's the idea that they feel like, yes, you understand me. Yes, you are correct. Not without actually trying to get a yes or no. If they say that's right, I am building the right type of rapport, which is trust. Or if they don't say that's right, what they tend to do is correct you. So they give you more information. So if I ask a yes or no question and someone says no, I can't do anything with it. But if I make a labeling statement and they don't agree, what they will do is give me the counterpoint. Tell me what's really going on. So if I say, Esteban, maybe I'm totally off base here, but it sounds like you're not even interested in selling your home. And you go, no, I am. I am interested because X, Y, and Z. All right, you've corrected it, which is in service of what I wanted. But if they go, yeah, that's right, I'm actually not. Okay, well, I can disqualify you, right? That's the power of a labeling statement. Rather than, are you interested in selling your home? And they might go, yeah, or no. Like, is this point hitting home? This is why we want to be intentional about how we are trying to get the homeowner or the prospect to respond to us. So, back to recapping. First off, any questions about this before I continue on?
Good.
Cool. So I say this. Back to recapping. In terms of focusing on what we want to recap, here's another point, which is going to seem like there's going to be a whole new can of worms to open up for you if you've been used to trying to get yes. But this comes to the power of what I'm talking about. If we're focusing on what we want to recap, why do I describe the sensation of their emotion in the past/present tense rather than the future tense, right? So up here, what they feel or felt. I didn't say will feel. This is really important. And it's an insanely powerful principle once you're actually able to grasp this. So rather than the reason I say feel/felt and not feel, felt, will feel is because orienting our language around the future tense is not emotionally as effective. This is really key. So what is more powerful than asking the question, where will you want to be in 6 months? What's more powerful than this? Asking questions where the answer is in the present, because that will have a greater emotional impact. And remember, we want to get people emotional before asking for the action, which is selling their home. So instead, because this seems like a great, oh, well, you want to be in 6 months. This might even seem, wow, what a great question. I haven't thought to ask that. However, there's a better way to ask that same point. It's the same idea, but it's far more powerful. And I'll give you an exact example right here. Instead, ask, if we buy your home and everything works out exactly how you wanted it to, and we're having this conversation 6 months from now, how are you feeling? Okay, so let's illustrate this idea. I'll just make this point. Where will you want to be in 6 months, not 56 months, in 6 months, should be, if we are able to buy your home, everything works exactly how you wanted it to, and we're having this conversation from 6 months from now, in your new setup, right, or new house, in your new location, at that new job, close to your grandkids, whatever their reason is for wanting to move, in your new setup, how are you feeling? Okay, so there's a few things that are going on here. First off, what's implied here isn't actually said out loud. Is that us from, which isn't actually said out loud, is that from us, is that us buying their home is inherently linked to the positive feeling, aka to their benefit. So there's neuroscience to back up now that if you ask someone to imagine an emotion in the present tense, the same part of the brain activates as if they actually felt that emotion. Now, it's not as extreme as if they really felt the emotion, but it's part of the reason visualization can work so well, and vision boards and meditation and hypnosis. All these principles work so well because we are asking them to actually imagine an emotion. So if I say 6 months from now, you're finally in that new location, everything's worked exactly how you want it to be. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling, and they might not give me enough. They might be like, I'm feeling better. And I go, well, what do you mean by better? And right. So there's also this idea of coaxing out more, not just accepting the first answer, but assuming I'm able to get more out. Then they start telling me about how they're actually feeling in that moment. And what's linked to this subconsciously, which isn't said out loud, is that we have to buy their home for that to happen. This is a really, really important principle. So when recapping, I can also bury reasons they want to move forward with me. This is next level stuff. If you're brand new to sales or real estate, investing and talking to people, this will seem like, oh my gosh, this feels like magic. I promise you it's not. It can seem that way if you're new to it, but there's a way we can break it down. It's exactly what Steve Trang and I train on, right? So I'll do a role play here with someone in a second to make this point, but you want to introduce concepts and issues that you solve with buying their home incrementally through some of the recaps. Okay. And it's always, we're about to do a role play. It's always a balance of asking questions and recapping. This allows me to help them feel understood while introducing new concepts and uncovering more motivation. So let's do a role play here, and then I'll finish up this document so this makes sense. So is there someone who's willing to role play with me?
I can role play if you want to.
Okay. So, Esteban, we're going to have you be someone who is highly motivated. Let's say you got like something like a letter in the mail from the bank, right? Like, let's just say that. So you filled out a form, maybe you use like Pestle Media or something. So I know I've got a good lead coming in, and now we're having a conversation. So I'll start with a basic question, and you just sort of embody a motivated seller as you imagine them, and I will start demonstrating the concepts of asking questions and recapping back, and then we'll talk about how I'm doing what I just talked about and break it down further in the rest of the document. Sound good?
All right, so let's clarify. So what type of seller do you want me to be or in?
Pre-foreclosure. Maybe you got a notice in the mail from the bank.
All right, and
Okay.
do I come from a specific channel or like?
You filled out you responded to a pay-per-click or something, or a social media. Like you're just an online lead. So now you booked the time, and I'm calling you at this time.
Okay.
Okay, that's really all I need, because I don't need to. We're not going to go into the details of the numbers or anything like that. It's just I'm going to demonstrate this concept in the initial part of the conversation.
All right.
So we'll just say we've just already started talking. I'm not going to do the intro. So Esteban, help me out here. I know you booked this time on the calendar. How are you really hoping we could help you?
Yeah, I just, was looking to see if you guys can help. Seems that your ad says that you guys give cash offers, so I was looking for a cash offer from someone, uh, that really knows how to sell houses or buy houses.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, Esteban, is there a reason that like a cash offer and the convenience of that would make more sense for you rather than going with a traditional real estate agent? Like, why would you even want a cash offer from someone like me?
With these real estate agents just want a lot of commissions and really they don't really work a lot. I just they just, are these people with fancy suits and I really don't want to deal with them. They keep calling me and keep calling me and keep calling me, and they're all just fake people. So I wanted to see if you guys are actually for real.
Okay. It's just fake people. It sounds like you've had some bad experiences with real estate agents in the past.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit annoyed by they calling me all the time, and also just sending me a lot of emails and so on, and emails I don't even ask for. Um and yeah, just I heard that there is buyers that can buy better and give good money. So I want to try this way.
That makes sense. When you say they've been sending emails, how long has that been going on for?
Like, oh man, a couple months now. I just ignored it now, and I put like a filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Do you know what prompted it? Like when did like what made them start harassing you basically?
Uh, maybe at one time I did inquiry about information about it, and then they just kept emailing me, and they just kept kind of like calling me, and other people call me and so on, and basically they just haven't left me alone.
Yeah.
And and they promise all these things, but I have to do a lot of work, which I don't really feel like doing, um, in order to make this happen.
Got it. When you say a lot of work, what were some of the things they're asking you to do?
They asked me to, potentially invest into doing some updates in order to actually sell it, and um, you know, having to meet them a few times and so on, and uh, you know, and then going through this process that they explained to me, where they get a lot of potential buyers to come to my house and stuff like that. It's just a lot of hassle that I see, and I want to avoid that.
Got it. It sounds like you're someone who like values convenience and also doesn't want to be harassed by people that you can tell are kind of fake and showing off. And so if we could make sure that we're just much more of a straight shooter process for you, and just like here's what it is, here's what you're going to get, at that point, you would feel like, no, this is the type of thing that would make sense for me.
Yeah, I just wanted something straight up. So, like these guys, some of them, they gave me fairy tale numbers, and some of them they were like, okay, but honestly, I am, again, like you said, I'm a straight shooter. Tell me what the offer is gonna be like, and you know, and then I'll tell you whether that makes sense. To be honest, just, it's kind of getting to the point where uh, I might, I might have to, like, I don't know what to do, to be honest, like sell it myself. I don't know. So
That sounds really, really frustrating. I mean, I know a lot of people in your circumstance that would start to even feel overwhelmed by something like that, especially as someone who values people being direct with them.
yeah.
Okay, and so I'm happy to sort of talk about what we can do regarding this. Is there any reason that prompted you to even start looking for an offer? If you don't mind me asking, like basically, what's the reason or the cause for wanting to sell your home?
Um, yeah, I've been trying to do stuff with this property for a while, and I just put money, and I never really get to finish things. It's just this property was literally given to me. I was inherited this property, and
Okay,
I tried to rent it out. I tried to do, different things to it. It's not really my cup, cup of pie, cup of tea, just something that I don't really enjoy doing anymore. And to be honest, it's made for someone else. Like my thing
yeah,
is tech. My thing is, software. I don't want to do any real estate, to be honest. It's
got
so
it.
it's annoying, and yeah.
Yeah, you said it's not your cup of tea anymore, but my guess is this was basically never your cup of tea. You sort of felt forced into this because you inherited the property.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted to do something about it, and then it
Yeah.
just ended up being more of a hassle.
How long ago did you inherit it, by the way?
About 2 years now.
Okay. So it's been 3 years of having to sort of pretend this is something you wanted to do to get up and keep doing it, but this was never really your cup of tea. And now real estate agents are bugging you. Basically, they're fake. They're promising you fairy tale numbers, and you just feel like if you could just get this done, this would probably be a benefit then.
Right.
Okay. So great job. So let's talk about some of the things I did in terms of the questions. So first, Esteban, what stood out for you, especially in regards to I was asking questions. It's harder for you because you're in the moment, right? So I'll open it up to the rest of the group in a second. But when I was recapping back things about what it sounds like, what it feels like you've been going through, I started really simply with things like, man, it sounds like, okay, so you're doing this, right? A simple summary. Then I started to talk about, man, how long has it been going on for? Oh, how did you feel going through that? I started including aspects of your identity as the rapport was building. Man, it sounds like you're someone who you just want it straight, and you're good. Can tell these guys are fake and wasting your time, right? So as I start to introduce this as a back and forth, it starts to like build this level of trust because they start to feel heard and understood. So what stood out for you, Esteban?
Um, Stood out that, well, one, you definitely wanted to find out why I felt the way I felt, or I was expressing that about realtors. It stood out that you wanted to figure out how long that inconveniency of getting emails was has been happening for. It stood out that you labeled me as someone that is a straight shooter, doesn't want to deal with the BS in between. Also, you label me as valuing conveniency as opposed to um, you know, the hassle that all these realtors made me go through, which gave me an identity, I guess. So
Yeah, And I'm also labeling your identity in a way that serves how we buy home, right? What's the point of buying a home with an investor? Is the convenience factor.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm using what you said to mold your identity in my recapping around someone who would want to do business with me. Does that make sense? So if convenience was not my thing, if my whole thing was to sell you as much as possible and it had nothing to do with convenience, I would not be recapping in a way that sounded like it was emphasizing convenience. I'm starting to do this incrementally over time to build up an aspect of identity. And what's so important about identity? Like, here's a really key thing. People, there's two sort of levels of why anyone does or buys anything, right? And selling your home is a buying decision, even though choosing to sell it, which is it's either utility or it's identity most often. So Arnold Schwarzenegger does not pick up his grandkids from school in a Hummer because of the legroom. He does it because of the movie playing in his head. People pay way more for identity than utility. This is something people coming from like poor countries where people have a scarcity mindset, and suddenly you're in America and there's all this abundance, and it's like you'll notice how much more people will pay for an aspect of their identity being fulfilled, which is why I'm trying to tether Esteban's identity as someone who would want to work with me based on how I buy houses and how I do business. And there's no one line that does it magically. It's not a magic spell, but doing this incrementally over the course of a 30, 45-minute conversation, he's going to feel and want to be congruent with what he has established as his identity. You'll see this a lot in a high ticket sales stuff. Be like, oh, you sounds like you're an action taker. And when you decide to do something, you're definitely going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. The reason they do that is because at the end, if you go like, well, now I need to think about this price, you're like, I'm confused. I thought you're an action taker, right? They want you to be congruent with an aspect of your identity. People don't want to have fractured identities. So I can't start with identity because it's too extreme of a labeling statement, but I start introducing it incrementally based on what he told me.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the call? Anything else that stood out to them from that role play just now? Nothing? Jenna, Juan, Carlos?
Ian, yeah, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this. I love this type of stuff. I got a question for you. Which tactics of which one, the ones you're talking about and sharing with us, which ones would you use if you already spoke with a prospect, already locked up a contract, and you walk the property and it's not nowhere near the condition they were talking about, and now you need to go back and ask for a price drop?
What I'm covering today would be a lot harder. I wouldn't do that for that exact thing. That would be a different approach because now I've already got context. I already understand the property. Mm-hmm. The nature of this is sort of most powerful for a longer time frame of the first long conversation. So we've got a bunch of strategies around a price drop. I don't want to get too distracted. I'll come back to that at the end of the call.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be. It's because it's a good question.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. So based on what I'm doing, and I think I forget who was at the start of the call mentioned what he thought recapping was like, just saying recapping at the end of the conversation. What's clear is it's not, here, put it in bold. It's not question, 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 long recap, right? It's not that. Instead, it is, first I can put it in bold, is question, question, recap, question, recap, question, recap, question, question, recap, right? That's what that thing was like. I was like, it sounds like this. It feels like this. It's a back and forth. It feels more like a conversation, right? So that's what's happening here. So don't think of recapping as I asked 10 questions in a row. I asked all these 15 questions I got to ask about a property, and then I recap what I heard. It should feel like I'm asking one or two questions to seek more clarity, and then I recap back what I heard, what they said, some aspect of their identity or what they feel or felt. Cool. So there's a really interesting, powerful principle here that I'll talk about, which is what sort of what I'm doing here. This is going to seem crazy, but bear with me. It's super powerful. In neuro linguistic programming, NLP, there is a concept called pacing and leading. Has anyone heard of this idea before or familiar with what NLP is? This concept can also be explained via hypnosis. And the principle is something that we are looking to give our version of in a sales conversation. So when someone goes to see a hypnotherapist to deal with an issue, there's an inevitable amount of hesitation. So it's like, let's say someone wants, like, oh, I want to quit smoking. I can't try. I've tried the patch. I've tried the gum. It's not working. Screw it. I'm going to hypnotherapist. They'll hypnotize smoking away from me, right? Even though they want to have their problem fixed, even though they want to have their problem fixed, they don't yet view the hypnotist as someone they can trust, as someone who understands them and their issues. They are resistant to the process, even though they want their problem fixed. Sound like any homeowners we might have interacted with, right? Even though they want to sell their home, they're still resistant to the process, right? Sound familiar? So, what does the hypnotist do to overcome this natural challenge here? They start by stating the most obvious inherent truths and sensations within their client's mind. So what they'll say is like, you are lying on the couch. You start to slow your breathing as you lie still, and your eyelids are closed, and since there's still a little light in the room, you can sense that through your eyelids. What they're doing here, this is an aspect of pacing. This is pacing. They're making sure that they're hearing inherent truths, so the brain is not going to argue, it's not going to disagree. How that relates to what we're doing is I don't start by recapping an aspect of Esteban's identity in that role play. I didn't start by saying you sound like someone who values convenience, because they would be resistant to agreeing to that if I started with that. I started with some basic thing of what he had just said, just summarizing what I had heard. This is an aspect of pacing, right? So then they start blending the concepts of what is inherently true and leading statements. So it would be like, as you lie there and stop moving, your heartbeat starts to slow. Right? That's not as obvious as you're lying on the couch, but it's probably true. If you were moving and then you're suddenly still with your eyes closed, your heartbeat will probably slow down. It's the usual physiological reaction. And then they would say, you can feel your heart rate slow, and you start to relax as you let your heartbeat slow down even more, right? Now, what I'm doing is pacing a little bit here. I'm including an aspect of sensation. You start to relax. Now, most people, if their heartbeat was high and slows down, it's a relaxing sensation, but it's not always true. They're blending the concept of leading it. So I'm telling you, yeah, you start to relax. And then I might be like, the stress and concern for the day is slowly being lifted off you as you breathe deeply. Right? They're starting to say stuff like that. And here's the real key. This is a hypnosis concept, but you can think of aspects of like this in sales, in a sales conversation. If the client then takes a deeper breath, the hypnotist can see they are starting to lead effectively. Does that make sense? If they say, as the stress concern for the day is slowly being lifted off you as you breathe deeply, and you see the person with their eyes closed go, it's because they're starting to engage now. That resistance to starting to go through the process is clear, is not as strong as it was at the start. So how can we apply this concept? How can we apply this when we are having sales conversations / buying houses? Right? How do we start implementing this? We recap incrementally with our questions over time in a way that slowly starts to reveal more emotion, more motivation, and more charged words or statements regarding their identity. And it doesn't take an incredibly long time, right? Like Esteban and I went role playing forever before I made a labeling statement around him valuing convenience. I just didn't do it immediately. And then I started to, if you watch, this is being recorded. If you're in REIpreneurs, you're able to watch this replay. Now that I've gone over this concept and you go back to look more, you'll notice I start introducing even more concepts. I start saying the same thing over and over again if I know it's an inherent truth before I add on a new concept, before I try something more powerful, like, and it sounds like you're frustrated with that. And before I do that, might often include like, okay, so you've been doing this and you've been trying. I was like, that's frustrating. The reason I am saying things that they have already said, or I've even already said that they've agreed to, is because they're hearing inherent truths first. They've already agreed. So they're hearing you are lying on the couch. You start to slow your breathing as you lie still. This is a really advanced concept. It's not magic. This is not some super Jedi mind trick. It can seem like that when you're doing this effectively. But if you combine how to ask amazing questions, what we covered a couple of weeks ago, with this concept of recapping back, of asking the most incredible questions, and then recapping aspect of something they said, something about how they feel or felt. It can be felt, it can be past tense, be like that must have been frustrating, or man, that sounds really tiring. If we're highlighting those things regarding the emotion in the present or past tense and some aspect of their identity, we are eliminating objections entirely, because we're building the most profound thing you can have in a sales conversation, which is the feeling like the person I am talking to, the person who's asking me questions and recapping back, understands me. And my identity over 20 minutes is now tied to the way the person buys homes or the way the person sells whatever, and the way they ask the question to make me want to do it will be tied in with that identity too. And they'll recap. So like, as someone who values convenience, who's just tired of dealing with realtors and wants to be given to it straight because you haven't even wanted this for 3 years, this has been on your mind of wanting to do this. It sounds like we can finally take this off your plate. If we can do that and pay a number that like it makes sense, how should we prioritize this? How powerful is that compared to, would you like $86,000? Right. So people are willing to start engaging and take action with urgency in a way that you would not get if you're just, okay, and the roof is 10 years old. This is like, it seems like magic if you're not used to it like this, but I go over this all the time with the people I train, and they start implementing it. They start finding a way to ask the right questions and then recap some aspect of what was said, the emotions of how they feel or felt for some aspect of the person's identity. You combine those two things together, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. You just have to choose not to. You have to be ethical enough not to sell ice to an Eskimo, but you have the ability to. So let me share. I will share this here now in the chat, and I'll also make sure this is sent to Esteban.
Sounds good. I'm gonna create an article about this too, man. It's pretty good stuff.
Cool. We've got a couple minutes left before I go. I don't know if did Juan already leave. I think he already did. So I was going to answer his question. Any other questions about the concept that we talked about today before we wrap up?
You know, I think we had Victor from last time too. Victor was in last call as well. Victor is a client of ours, I think so. But he's quiet today.
That's all good. Who knows?
We got a few people that commented. Oh, I missed all these comments. Oh, never mind. This were comments from the past. Never mind. Oh, this thing saves all the chat. That's great. That's funny. All right, cool. Victor, any questions or anyone, Jenna? Anything that you guys want to ask before we have the expert in front of you guys? We're not gonna have him till like a few weeks. So any issue that you guys have with the seller or a situation that you have can also be asked. If not, we can call it a break. We can call it a day.
That might be it. If no one's got anything.
Yeah,
all
and
good.
Jesse today was apparently in an auction that he couldn't get out. So he's gonna come next time, but he messaged me just before that he was not gonna be able to do it. But yeah, he was in an auction that he couldn't.
No worries.
All right, man. So all right, so for anyone, so Victor and Jenna, you guys have team members. You guys need to know that there is a new offer going out with Close More Sales. And basically Close More Sales will have, I think it's still a community of sales training and so on, and it's very, very easy to access. But at the same time, like all the stuff that Ian is actually doing on right now today, he's also actually doing it, training on it every single day, basically, with his students and everyone in the in the real estate space, other space, as well other niches and so on. But he teaches this sales every single day, and he makes sure that you review calls and and role plays and so on, right? You do all of this, great stuff. So if you have a team and you want to make sure that they're getting better at a very, very, very good deal, like literally it's a no-brainer. Ian has something for you guys. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Ian?
Yeah, so it's a relatively new thing. I mean, it doesn't start till Monday, so you guys are literally the first people hearing about this. But I'm on like launching an advanced sales mastery, which is this idea of we're gonna go like really like this concept, right? Like you're the first thing that Victor's saying, great information, he appreciates it, all good. Like you can be like, wow, that sounds really cool, but how do I actually start applying this? So there's like two main levels in terms of learning any skill, which is like the really deep information around like, oh my gosh, I hadn't heard about recapping aspects of their identity. What a cool thing. And there's that aspect, but there's also making sure you get practice doing it. So in advanced sales mastery, my whole job is making sure that when I'm teaching these concepts, we then break down how to actually do it. We role play in groups, we go through your calls, we look at sales training that other people are doing or live sales calls from other trainers or stuff online. Like even looking at Tony Robbins talking to an audience member, and I'll be like, notice how he just did this thing where he moved his hand down. That's a body language technique. That's a pattern interrupt. Like we're breaking down all the incredible aspects of persuasion, basically, as it relates to professionally getting people to decide to take action. So the link, I believe, Close More Sales, I think probably goes to the book funnel, the book thing. I think it's, let me get a link up for you. I'll just send that to you here. Moresales.com. Here we go. I can't post it in the chat. Can I not post it in the chat? It looks like only direct. Oh no, there it is. Meeting group chat. So there's that. And also, I didn't share this. I shared this. I'll share this to you guys here. Also, the document that we went through today. So, if that's something you're interested in, we can book a call with the team and see if you qualify. Because the main thing is, I'm not. If you're brand new, if you've never had any sales experience at all, you've never talked to a single person, this probably isn't for you. This is for people who are like have some level of experience and want to take themselves to the next level. So if that's something you want to do, well, the team will see if you qualify. But we're going really, really deep into some of like the most insane persuasion techniques where it's like Steve Trang calls it like I've developed this thing where it's like I have my thumb against the scale at all times. Where it's like it's crazy some of the things I'm able to do. I don't even think I have a thumb against it. I think I've got a magnet under the scale. If I do this right, if assuming the person is qualified, if they are a lead, there's a pretty strong chance they're going to want to work with you. So if that's something you're interested in, check out that link.
All right. Thank you, man.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
That's it for me. Take care.
I'm being here. All right.